Similar to how I did with the NFC North previously, now that I've previewed the 4 AFC North teams for 2015, I'm going to give you my official AFC North 2015 predictions. And here we go. Let's get through this in a somewhat quick fashion with my bloviating ass. All right. Now, in terms of this division, I do still think that this is a pretty solid division. You saw that last year. You had 3 playoff teams, and the team bringing up the rear was the Cleveland Browns, who finished 7-9. And mind you, this was a Cleveland Browns team that went 7-4 in the first 11 games. Yes, they lost the last 5, but there are a lot of divisions where the Browns may have been the second best team in the division, but in the AFC North, they were the worst. So, you got to put that into perspective sometimes. And even with the Browns, there were situations where they played other teams close, and they maybe should have won 9 or 10 games last year. So this was a really good division last year. And I still think it'll be a solid division this upcoming season. I don't think it'll be quite as good. I think there will be a couple of teams that take a small step back, but I still think this will be a somewhat competitive division for most of the season, I do anticipate. Now, in terms of the team that'll bring up the rear, they did it last year. They do it most years. I don't see why that's going to change. I just really don't like the aura and vibe I get from the Cleveland Browns. You can call me wrong in a few months. If I'm wrong, so be it. But I look at this Browns team. There's a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback position again. Imagine that. Their top 2 wide receivers may very well be Dwayne Bowe and Brian Hartline on the outside. Yeah, imagine that. Their defense, I think, still has holes at all 3 levels. This is a team, though, I will say, to be fair to them, I think they're well coached. I really love the talent on that offensive line, and I love the talent that they have at the running back position. If this is a Browns team that can figure out a way to minimize their mistakes, to be able to control the clock, and run the football consistently, establish that physical identity on offense, play to their strengths, which is on the offensive side of the ball with their trenches, with their running game, this is a Browns team that could far exceed what I'm projecting for them. This is a Browns team that could play above that. This is a Browns team that could be competitive in a lot of games. However, I'm still not that sold on their defense. Again, I don't like what they have at quarterback. I really don't like what they have at receiver, which leads me to believe that they can be very one-dimensional. I mean, you're talking about a Browns team that, you're talking about lost their number 1 receiver for another season, basically, in Josh Gordon. Their number 2 wide receiver, the tight end, Jordan Cameron, who went off to go to Miami. I mean, to me, I look at the Browns, and they've got 4-12, maybe 5-11 written all over them. They just do. They play in a tough division. There's uncertainty at quarterback, lack of talent outside in the passing game. Yeah. I mean, if you're being honest, and you're not just a Browns homer, if you're sitting there and handicapping this, by far the team that looks the weakest, again, has to be the Cleveland Browns. Imagine how much different the trajectory of this organization would be if they would have taken maybe, I don't know, Odell Beckham Jr. like the fuck I said they should have last year, and Teddy Bridgewater instead of Johnny Manziel. Imagine how different things would be right now for the Browns heading into 2015. I guarantee you they would have finished last year better than 7-9, and I guarantee you the buzz around this organization would be entirely different heading into this season. Just think about that, Browns fans. Those decisions on those nights, like in round 1 of the draft, can really haunt an organization long term. Now, in terms of 3rd place in the AFC North, I go to the Baltimore Ravens. As I referenced in the team preview, I think this is a team that is due for a bit of a step back. I think this is a team that could maybe win 6 games this upcoming season. I'll be a little more generous, though, because of the experience that they have, because it's not like they have that many of those type of seasons. I think the Ravens are an 8-8 football team. I really do. Flacco is good but not great. I really don't like what they have outside in the passing game. I have questions about somewhat of their offensive line. I have questions about the age and depth on the defensive side of the ball. I have questions about their secondary. At some point in time, you can't be competitive forever. You can't be a contender forever. And I wonder if this is finally the year where that starts to catch up with the Baltimore Ravens. They've lost too much talent over the years, and they haven't been able to fully replenish it. And again, when you look at a division where you have the Steelers, you have the Bengals, I just think ultimately that both of those teams are better than the Baltimore Ravens. I really do. Now, I think that the Bengals are a lot similar to what they've been the past 4 years. A team that's good but not great. A team that is maddeningly inconsistent because on the 1 week they'll sit there and fool you and look like world beaters, like they did last year against Denver late in the year. But then they'll lose really bad, horrible games by really bad, horrible margins where it looks like they were just overwhelmed and they don't even look like an NFL team. And again, in part, that's a reflection of their quarterback, Andy Dalton. I think with the Bengals, it's a lot of the same thing. This is a team that's very comfortable with who they are. There's a lot of chemistry there. There's a lot of continuity there. There's a lot of understanding of what's expected on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And maybe at some point in time, that'll be enough to make a bigger difference and get this team to advance past the first round of the playoffs. But I look at this Bengals team, and at the end of the day, am I going to pick a team led by Andy Dalton or a team led by Big Ben to win a division? I'm just saying. I do like what the Bengals have on the ground with that combination of Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard. They still have A.J. Green on the outside, and they have some good players on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that could win this division, but I happen to think that they're probably another 10-6 team in 2015. In terms of the division winner in the AFC North, I've got to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought last year that they were going to be pegged for mediocrity, that 8-8 might be a good year for them. I was wrong. That offense stepped up in a big way, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, believe it or not, was carrying that organization. It's a lot different from your daddy or your grandpappy's Pittsburgh Steelers, that's for damn sure. This was a team that was explosive on the offensive side of the ball. They could move the ball in bunches through the air, throwing outside to Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Le'Veon Bell out of the backfield. This was a team that could put some points up on the board. They can move the ball on offense. Problem is, defensively, they got old on the back end, which they have been for years. Their linebacking play isn't the same that it once was. It's just not the same Steelers defense with the same team. I think they're good enough ultimately because of the strength of their offense behind Big Ben and Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant and Le'Veon Bell to be able to score points with anybody, to be able to be in most every game because when they need to, they're going to be able to have to put up points, which is probably going to be enough to help them in the regular season, which is probably going to be enough to ultimately help them win this division. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of similar to last year's team, an 11-win football team. I don't know if I necessarily classify them as a championship contending team because when you look at the back two levels of that defense on the linebacking core and in particular in that secondary, there are major serious questions. And those are problems that could really rear their ugly head in big-time moments and situations, especially come playoff time. In the regular season, it might not matter as much because you could have Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, that three amigos, if you will, carry you to some stretches where you win several games in a row, and I think that's what will happen. So I've got the Browns bringing up the rear at 4-12. I've got the Ravens going 8-8. I've got the Bengals 10-6, and your 2015 AFC North champions will be the 11-5 Pittsburgh Steelers.